Hey there, Alex here. Welcome to another episode. I believe this is number 15. And this is a bit of a little mini series on turning fear to love. And so in this, make sure you watch the first or the last episode, episode 14, because that gives a really nice foundation. And even before that, I've numbered everything to really help build upon each other. So because I'm trying to give some concepts to really, really pull your energy in along this journey so that you understand that you're working within yourself to create the change, the growth, all of the things that need to happen to bring you into an inner unity, an inner wholeness, to that love frequency and back into an unconditional love for self. I say back into because this has probably not been your reality for many, many, many lifetimes. And this is largely the reason why you've met your twin, in order to activate this process in this lifetime to come into this wholeness again, and then to have that reflected within that twin so that the outer union can also come into play in the 3D, which is a whole new realm. And it's happening more and more right now as this whole planet is ascending, as we're moving into this new age, as we're getting closer and closer to the central sun. We have all these light codes coming in right now, and we need to upgrade our nervous system. That's what ascension is. We've been called to do it. We've been activated to do it. Your Kundalini has been lit on fire. And so again, in that last episode, I talk about some of that lower level, more reactive, dysregulated energy that happens when that Kundalini gets lit, that separation happens, and the really highly addictive energies are in play, and what to do about that. And of course, there'll be more about this in future episodes as well, but just to kind of calm that and quell that down, knowing that there are further stages that are going to happen, not always in order, and depending on what the triggers are and how many times that trigger is needed to come up for you in order to alchemize that or to transmute that back into love. And that's what I want to talk about here today, because once we've got past that lower reactive, dysregulated, addictive stuff, at least in any moment, what begins to happen as we rise in our frequency, in our core resonant frequency, moving anywhere from 50 all the way up to 540, which is the range. It's actually 0 to 1,000, but really the range that we're working in is more around 50 to 540, which would be unconditional love. And so we're on an expedited journey along this, but once we're, above some of those lower ones and we get to the level of courage, which is actually when Kundalini naturally comes online and starts working with it starts to spiritualize your ego. At that 200 level, your etheric brain is born, and you have more logic and reason and much more clear intuition and knowing. And so you start to dance with these two as this journey continues. And in many, many cases, the twin is either coming in or doing things that are triggering the bejesus out of you. And so it's how to work with these different triggers that are happening, what's happening with this, because they really are a gift. And so I have a couple of things that I drew out and just a different diagram for you here today. I'm very visual, and I hope that this helps things to sink in. It seems to be for many of you. So hopefully this will also help. But what I want to cover today is what happens when these triggers happen, and how do we work with the masculine and feminine energies and spiral ourselves up the scale of consciousness to rise our core resonant frequency higher and higher towards love, which is where we collapse all of that, all of the distortions, and we basically are alchemizing false beliefs, limiting beliefs, faulty programs and wounds and things, as well as trapped emotions and energies that are reverberating out of us, beliefs and so on. All of this we start to clear, and we rise our core resonant frequency up and collapse that to where we are now constantly and permanently living in the fifth dimensional reality, which is also a perspective of no time or space, where everything is accomplished and held for you, and your higher self and your lower self have merged into this new way of being. This is called New Earth in many ways, and so on. Now, just a quick reminder that you can go into Zen states, Satori states, bliss out states, deep meditations, even walking meditate, just different things that will bring you into that fifth dimensional consciousness. Absolutely. They're beautiful practices, and they will help to bring some of these things up to be cleared, some of the distortions to be cleared. So that's a beautiful thing. It's just that it won't necessarily be your core resonant frequency to be able to not just attract the twin back, but to maintain that. That permanent union. Permanent union happens with permanent inner union, which is a permanent balancing and a rebalancing of your masculine and feminine energies and ascending to where your nervous system now can handle all input that's coming to you and not be disrupted, because you've learned how to work with your own energies so that you can walk through the shadow of the valley of death, right? Isn't that what is said? And still maintain that consistency. And that is what will bring them and maintain that union within and then therefore without. So it's all about moving up that scale. Again, yes, you can have those moments, and absolutely they're beautiful and they're important to practice and to bring yourself back to center. They're amazing. So keep doing that, but just know as you do that, and the more you do that, the more you are going to pull that twin in and be activated. You will also pull other things from the sixth dimension. Your higher self is going to deliver all kinds of situations and people and things outside of you to also further activate you and help you to come into a balance. It's everything. It's just, again, that the twin is that perfect parallel reality in this reality that is mirroring exactly what those things are, which is why they can be so darn triggering. So again, this is the goal. This is a different way of looking at it, but you can still see the different levels of consciousness. So again, when you are down in shame and guilt and apathy and grief, you're pushing that out onto the twin and you're blaming and you're dysregulated. I'm not saying you specifically, but this is what happens. And this can happen with many different things that are being triggered. It could be a deep abandonment wound that's being triggered. It could be a worthiness wound that's being triggered. It could be all kinds of different things. Again, future videos, I'll go into very specific types of things that are generated in the different chakras, so we can really dive into the deeper specifics. But just know that when the wounds are hit or the trapped emotions are hit or different memories, things like that, those triggers then are looking through the lens of your core resonant frequency. And through the belief systems that you're looking through. And so therefore, your core resonant frequency has everything to do with how you're going to alchemize that energy. So if you are angry, let's say you're in anger, you don't yet have that, your Kundalini's activating you right now, but you don't necessarily have the awareness and the etheric brain and the awareness that comes in at around 200. And so you really have to rely on just feeling through it and allowing yourself to accept the moment and to be accepting of yourself for having the feeling, and then throwing a few questions in, like, do I have to feel anger right now? Is there a way that I can accept this? Is there another time that I felt this before that maybe I could have, could I have dealt with this a little differently? How is this mine? How is this my own anger that's being reflected to me? When have I acted in a way that may have triggered others to feel angry like I'm feeling right now? So you can really start to ask questions around what you're feeling and not try to aim for the higher feelings that you don't have access to yet. You kind of have to work with where you are. And so first you want to allow for the feeling, and then you want to go to the questioning around it. You don't have to go to the questioning. I'm just suggesting, if you want to learn the lesson and move up and alchemize it, sometimes your subconscious will want to bring that to your awareness, or your unconscious. And that's what that awakening is bringing the unconscious to the conscious. And then you can just affirm that, okay, that's what that is. And I'm going to, next time I'll have this higher level of awareness. And all this is a chart of awareness, your level of awareness, consciousness, the amount of love that you're able to allow in, because the lower we are, the more distortions and the ways that we're seeing things are. So you just start to step yourself up and reach for the next better feeling. So if you're angry, then how can I feel into a little bit more pride? Yeah, we don't want to necessarily be prideful, but at least the difference between anger, which is where you're frustrated, all levels of frustration and anger, that things aren't the way you think they should be. Well, can I see it in a way that I don't have to have it be different? There's a question you can ask yourself. And then when you get to that, wow, I'm proud of myself. I'm actually proud. I'm proud that I was able to shift the way I was seeing this, shift this perception a little bit. And that means you're actually stepping up a little bit. And then from pride, you might go into courage. And courage is really, again, that 200 fulcrum point where your natural Kundalini, normally it starts to awaken here if you've been here before, but also then you have the spiritualized etheric brain comes online, and now you have more pulling you. Now, I'm going to guess most all of you are here and on this journey are not, your core resonant frequency is probably not down here, but we get activated so much depending on the wounding that we've had in our life or lifetimes that it pulls us down here. So you really, most all of us, I really believe, are at that 200 and above level to begin with, as at a core spot, which is why you feel so much discord when you're down below that. It just is so out of alignment with who you feel and know yourself to be. So as you start to move up again, you go into courage, then you're reaching up for neutrality, to just be able to be okay with the moment as it is. You don't have to accept it fully, but just to be neutral about it, to just be calm about it. And you don't even, not even necessarily thinking about it, just to allow yourself to become neutral. And then you can move into, okay, I'm willing to look at this and see if I can see it differently. I'm willing to poke at this a little bit and move myself up even further. And then comes the acceptance of, okay, not only am I willing to see this differently, but wow, I think I can see this differently. I see that this has happened to me before. I responded in this way. And then you can ask yourself things like, what belief would I have to have about myself in order to feel that way? Or you could ask, who would I be if I didn't have that feeling? That's a very courageous question to ask yourself, and a willingness to be accepting of yourself. And then you go into that reason. And then, so you just slowly, you're just pulling yourself up and up and up. And you're using, again, the feeling, allowing the feeling to pass before going to the mind, and then asking some self-inquiry questions. What is this that I'm feeling? When have I felt this before? When did I feel it before that? Have I ever inflicted this onto someone else? Have I ever inflicted this onto myself? So when the twin comes in and triggers you on something specific, after going through the feeling, you can ask, what is it that I felt there? What is the emotion, or what did that trigger within me? A feeling of what? Fill in the blank. That made me feel very disrespected. And so you can say, when have I felt this before? And you can start to dig into that. But then you can also say, when have I, or how am I disrespecting myself? If my twin is my mirror, how am I disrespecting myself right now? Another thing with the twin coming in, or maybe not even coming in, just off doing their own thing. I'm feeling totally neglected. So when have I neglected myself, or how am I neglecting myself? What can I do to serve myself? Again, after you go through the feeling, you go to the mind after. Again, you don't have to do these things. You can just say, hey, God, source, please show me, reveal to me what this is about. I'm not seeing it. Please help me to understand it in your right time for the highest and best. And just let it go, move about. Get yourself rebalanced again, do some breath work, or some yoga, or get out in nature, these different grounding techniques, ways to get present again. Be in the space where you are, be where you are, not go to the past and ruminate or think about the stories, and not project into the future of how you want it to be, when's it going to happen, how's it going to look, what's going on. Just really avoiding all of that stuff in the time and space, and all the preferences and the judgments that are of everything that's going on. That's not the place of the mind where you want to go. You just want to stay really centered, or in some inquiry inward towards yourself, not inquiry about what they're doing, but what is it I felt? Taking radical responsibility for what you're feeling, and starting to inquire inwardly about those feelings that you have. So I wanted to show you this that I drew out for you, because I think this might also help. So everything works in spirals, or it's really spirals. It's up and down. So if you look at the Hermetic principles, we have as within, so without, as above, so below. We have the law of correspondence. That's what that is. We also have the law of rhythm, and this is really a law of rhythm. So it's kind of a spiral motion, but it looks up and down when you're looking at it drawn on a picture or something. Cause and effect, the law of polarity, the law of gender. Everything is that. This is why we're dealing with the twin in this way, because we are the negative polarity, the feminine, and the divine masculine is the positive polarity, and they work in a spiral as well. And inside of us, we have our own inner divine masculine and feminine, of course, and those also need to work together and come into a balance. So what I drew here is kind of what this spiral looks like as we are far down on the scale of consciousness. Okay, if we're down in the lower areas here, the distance between the polarity is much stronger because it's like the distance is greater, and so it's a little bit slower to alchemize at sometimes, to move yourself up the scale, but it starts to build a momentum, and you start to really master this dance between accepting the self and knowing thyself. Okay, this comes from some of the raw material, the law of one. Okay, so accepting yourself would be the feminine. So this is your emotion, intuition, and the feeling, again, the negative polarity, and that pushes around to the positive, and that's where we can come to know ourselves. And if we can come to understand, this is the thinking, the mental, the logic, and the reason, we can come to bring the unconscious to the consciousness, then we can move up to the next level of spiral. And then it's going to come around again and again. So you might have a core wound that comes around many, many times, but you're going to see it through different lenses as you move up this scale, not just in one sitting, but I mean as a core resonant frequency, because that Kundalini will rise slowly, slowly, slowly until it resides in the heart, which is where we are aiming for this 500 and 540 range here, this God frequency, this love frequency. That's what we're really aiming for. And it takes a while, to get up there. You can make quantum leaps for sure, but this journey really is about rising up to here. And it is a spiral journey. So you're going to get new layers of the same wound that shows up a little bit differently. It feels a little different. You learn a little something else. It shows up, and you're alchemizing and transmuting it into love each time it goes around. So then you might have another core wound or another thing, like a number of different pieces that are coming around. And the twin basically comes in and triggers those things for you to just take them in. And I want you to see what a dance that is. And it's kind of a beautiful thing when you really, really own it, like really own. And I put this up here just to remind you, if you haven't seen the video that's titled You Pushed Out, it's just my interpretation of the twin flame, which is you here in the third, fourth dimension on your way, collapsing that, collapsing yourself up into the high 500 frequency, which is the fifth dimension. But your twin flame is the opposite in the physical, or in the spiritual realm, is the opposite. It's like your parallel reality. It's exactly mirrored in your physical twin. Okay, polarized and mirrored in your physical twin, but also everything else in your life. So again, anything that's coming in that feels in any way contracting or constricting, and you feel that, it even says it here, it says contracting and not expanding. When it feels contraction in your body, it's because it's not in alignment with how source sees it. And it's something to be excited to work on. Take that radical responsibility, pull yourself into alignment. Don't blame or shame anything outside of you. Don't look for any relief outside of you. Look for it within, be with it, surrender to the feeling of what it is. And then you can, when you're calm and it's calmed down, then you go to the mind, which created that it's not seeing it properly. So you're now going to the mind to try to find dig in a little bit to find a way to bring that unconscious belief or negative program or whatever it is, or even just it's pretty much those types of things for the most part. Bringing what created the distortion up is the mental part. Letting go of the distortion itself, the energy itself, is the feminine. So the feeling and the thinking is letting go of the energy of the distortion and then learning the lesson so you don't create it again. And then the next thing comes in, you let it go, and then you go to the mind afterwards. So that's kind of how that works. I'm hoping that this is making sense, please. And again, the specifics are going to be very specific to you. I really will need to go through a lot of some of the different things so that it might prompt for you to be a little bit more proactive about it, but that'll be more in the proactive stuff. But this is really for you to see that the twin is doing you a favor when they come in to trigger you, because they're holding the space You can't fix it with them, but they're there to show you what needs to be worked on. And so you thank them and you get right back into alignment. It's not them trying to do something. They are following the energetics of this whole thing. And if you're not progressing, then something will come in. It will come in. But if you're just looping and you keep going outside and trying to control what's happening outside, or you're thinking about what's happening outside, or you're frustrated about it, and you keep looking out and seeing the twin as separate than you, then go back and figure out, if my model doesn't work, find some way to understand that they are you. They are you. You are your own twin flame. They are just a manifestation of that in the 3D. So when you come into that perfect, beautiful balance and you become the creator at this point, no more distortion, you literally become a clear channel and home for your soul. You're an instrument of the soul at that point. Everything collapses down in time and space. Manifestations just happen. Your abundant, all the things that seem to have eluded you in your life are all done and there for you. And your twin is your ascension partner coming in to help trigger that nervous system and help you to change and grow that nervous system, grow your capacity to be able to regulate in any situation and to hold your own and to be with whatever's happening in the world and to create from there, to feel it, to learn from it, to create then from there. And that's this journey. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful journey. And so if you make it about the twin, if the twin is your goal, you're still seeing them as separate and you're trying to manipulate and do something for something outside of you, and it will elude you. You have to really, really bring that in and be grateful for the twin, be grateful for even the things that seem nuts. And if nothing's happening with them, that's when we go into being a little bit more proactive, but you'll be surprised because even just other things in your life, you might be overlooking. You might be having some real financial distress and you're not moving into your purpose and it's calling you forth, but you're still focused on the twin and all the twin flame stuff. Right? But you actually need to take some steps and get over some of the fears and the things that are keeping you from moving forward in your Dharma. And that could be the very thing that's keeping the twin away, right? Because they're there holding the space for the highest version of you. And they will come in when you're in alignment with that fully and like owning it. But until then, you might have other areas that are showing up that you're neglecting to see. So that's another really good thing to chew on here. I know I've given you a lot of information on this one, but I hope that this is landing again for you as sort of that middle phase where you're not so highly reactive, but where you're starting to just notice this pattern, right? Of them coming in and leaving and coming in and leaving, or feeling them. It doesn't even have to be physical. It could just be that suddenly they're really heavily on your mind and you're feeling like you want to listen to, like, feel what you're feeling, but then what is it that I'm feeling? Am I feeling rejected? Am I feeling neglected? Am I feeling unimportant? Whatever the things are. And when have I felt that before? And then dig, if you want. If you want. If you don't want to dig, then again, just ask, say, hey, if I'm supposed to learn something about this, please show me what that is. And then just go get yourself back into a bliss or at least a happier state or a more grounded, balanced state, and then move about your day. But definitely take the moment to ask for the lesson. Otherwise, you won't learn the lesson and it'll just have to keep coming around. So you do want to consider both the masculine and feminine, and that's what we're trying to bring into a beautiful cooperation because they've just been so disjointed for so long. So I hope this helps. And if you're looking for more proactive help, of course, that's what I do. So you can learn a little bit more down in the description below about some of the work that I do. Otherwise, I'm going to do probably a number of more videos around this, a little bit more specific, and certainly moving into some of the proactive things you can do to kind of stir things up if you're a hacker like me. Once I learned I wasn't getting on the journey, I was just like, let's go. Let's just go. Let's get this going. So I hope that this was helpful, and I will see you in the next video.